I want to get straight to the source. The Republican presidential candidate and former Texas Congressman Will Hurd, who is also not going to be on that stage tomorrow night. You were pretty confident that you were going to make it. What happened?
Well, 8 national polls, 8 state polls that had us meeting the requirement, and some of them were cherry picked. One, for example, in essence, was the RNC said it had too many Democrats and independents in the poll, and I'm shocked. I'm like, well, aren't we trying to grow the party? That should be something we should be encouraging. And I think this is one example of why the RNC and why the GOP hasn't won a nationwide popular election in over 20 years.
Because basically they argued that the polls needed to have a certain amount of likely Republican voters.
Absolutely. And I believe, and most people would believe, that anybody who'd be willing to vote for a Republican is a likely Republican voter. And that's how we're going to grow the party. That's how we're going to beat Joe Biden in November. That's how I continue to win as a black Republican in a 72% Latino district. And look, the decision has been made. We tried to articulate why we should have been on there. We're moving on. But here's some good news. I'm tied in New Hampshire with Nikki Haley and Mike Pence, the former VP, a former UN ambassador. Both of them have been in the race much longer than I have. I got to the 40,000 thresholds and probably will get to the 50,000 threshold by the end of the week. So if folks still want to help, hurdforamerica.com, and at least invest $1 to help us hit those goals. And so we're growing, we're moving, and what we're learning is that people want someone who's not afraid of Donald Trump, and who's articulated a vision on the future, and who also recognizes that 9/11 was real and wasn't a hoax, right? Like, that's, if I was on the debate, Vivek and I would have had some issues with that, especially when you think about the 3,000 people that died on that day and the thousands that were injured. It's just unacceptable.
I want to get to that, but you're saying in this race is what you're telling me right now.
Absolutely. We have the resources. We have momentum. People are excited. A lot of our supporters are upset about what happened, and we're going to drive on.
Yeah.
And so we're undeterred. This is not going to stop us because the stakes are too high for us not to stop. And so we're going to continue, and people want someone who recognizes that we need to have unprecedented peace at a time there's the Chinese government trying to surpass us as a global superpower, where we have to have a thriving economy at a time when new technologies like AI is going to impact everyone. Our kids need to have world-class education. These are the issues that people talk about and ask me when I'm crisscrossing the country. And look, Iowa's another example. People talk about how I went there and I spoke the truth. I said Donald Trump's running to stay out of prison.
We
got booed. But guess what? We went back and we got cheered. And so, the Des Moines Register headline was from jeers to cheers, right? So we're moving in the right direction. I'm excited, and we're going to press on.
And you said at that moment, whenever you said Donald Trump is running to stay out of prison, in your view, you said it's the truth. You need to hear it. I mean, what do you think does need to be asked on that stage tomorrow night?
Look, I think what needs to be asked is, how are people going to manage a complicated economy when you have artificial intelligence, quantum computing, synthetic biology? And today, we can program DNA like we can program computer code, right? We have to be prepared for that. How are we going to make sure that we rebuild our alliances to take on this threat of China? How are we going to repair a relationship with Mexico? The bilateral relationship between the United States and Mexico is the worst it's ever been. That's important in order for us to deal with this humanitarian crisis that we're dealing with right now. If we want to treat human traffickers and human smugglers and drug trafficking organizations like terrorist organizations, then we have to cooperate with the Mexican government and the governments throughout Latin America. These are some of the questions that need to be asked on the debate. And also, people got to explain, was 2020 lost, right? And the reality is it was. Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. It was not stolen. He was incapable of growing the Republican brand amongst the largest growing groups of voters. And if we don't recognize that, and if the person who's the GOP nominee doesn't recognize that, then we are giving 4 more years to Joe Biden, and that's unacceptable, and America deserves better.
You mentioned Vivek Ramaswamy. He once said it would be an embarrassment and uncourageous for Trump to not show up to the debates. Last night he said he's fine with Trump skipping some of them, but coming to some others. Why do you think Donald Trump is not going to the debate tomorrow night?
Well, Donald Trump's not going to the debate tomorrow night because he doesn't want to have to defend his record of losing. Donald Trump has not won an election since 2016. He lost the House in 2018. He lost the Senate and the White House in 2020. And he prevented a red wave from coming in 2022. He doesn't want to have to answer that. He doesn't want to have to answer to the fact that all of his legal problems are self-inflicted. When you know you have classified documents, we're not debating whether or not he had classified documents. Turn them back in. Why are you hiding? Why were you trying to keep them? What did you do to protect that information that you knew you had in your possession? You lost the 2020 election. Don't call a state official and say, hey, find me votes and get someone to break the law when you knowingly knew you were asking them to break the law. Don't do those things. And we wouldn't be in this position. And then guess what? We could be talking about Hunter Biden. We could be talking about the fact that the president gave $6 billion to the Iranian government to try to get some of our Americans back, but we didn't actually get them back. This is the problem with the baggage around Donald Trump. And guess what? No one's going to be paying attention about the debate on Thursday because everybody is going to be focused on what's happening in Georgia.
What do you make of the timing of Trump turning himself in 24 hours after the debate?
Of course, he's trying to take all the air out of the sails of anything that's happening on that debate stage. And the RNC should be upset by that. The RNC should be angry that Donald Trump asked for all of these provisions to happen. He wanted everybody to bend a knee to him, and then he's not going to sign the pledge. He's not going to participate in the debates. That's a complete smack in the face, and folks should be angry and upset by that.
And you just mentioned Vivek Ramaswamy, and we had him on last night asking about these questions. Comments he's made twice now on 9/11, gave him a chance to explain himself. I mean, what would you say to him about those comments if you were on stage with him tomorrow night?
I would say, Vivek, here's the truth. 9/11 happened, and it killed 3,000 Americans on that day. And anybody who is running for president of the United States should recognize that and defend our nation against potential attacks like that. And using this issue as a way to try to get clicks is just completely unacceptable.
Well, Hurd, you won't be on the debate stage tomorrow night, but you say you were staying in the race. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Of course.